Hop on with us as we dive into the latest topics, share some laughs, and bring you insightful conversations in and around the realm of ag. From down-home wisdom to cutting-edge tech, we've got what you need to fuel your curiosity. So tune in, relax, and let's kick back. On the Tailgate, presented by Wade Incorporated.
Hi guys, welcome back to On the Tailgate. On the Tailgate with us today, we have Patrick Johnson and Johnny Marshall again for part 2 of Operations Center. And of course, I'm back, your host Cade Moody, with my co-host Gaston Line and Mr. Ware, the producer. So look, part 1 of Operations Center, we talked about the fundamentals. So what do you have to have to kind of get the base level value out of Operations Center? So what we talked about, connected machines, so make sure your machines are online, MTGs, modems where you can, and then of course for other stuff, your razor tracking devices for trucks and whatnot. Get your free Operations Center account and get good boundaries inside of that account. And then we touched a little bit on guidance tracks inside that account to make it easier for that customer when they get to that field. Less turn row time, more go to the field, and you know what you're doing, you know what line to get on, take off. Okay. And now that's kind of where I want to start now is with the work planner feature. So Patrick, give me your take on work planner and how it picks up where we left off last episode, with a good guidance track, a good boundary, and your equipment online.
Yeah, so we talked about trash in equals trash out, right? Work planner is the one feature that will eliminate trash, because whether it's the actual owner, grower, or manager, he can go in, he can take that exact data that we know is correct, and number one, he can create a setup file and send to all of his equipment. So you want to factory reset those displays. You know, this is on an account that's come into us, it's trashed up, we've cleaned it up. Now we want to get accurate data back to it. I'm talking about your boundaries, your tracks, your client farm field names. And then in setup is where I try to go to with every single customer. So that's the first place, because that's where, number one, we can look at all of our equipment. We can check our MTGs, displays, receivers.
Software.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah. So, you know, I tell a guy, if you're going to spend any time right now, you know, before we send these setup files, before we get to work planner, let's go to setup, because he needs to go in there and populate varieties, get with his chemical rep, seed rep, fertilizer, he can put in his tank mixes, anything he can populate at the computer in the wintertime is that much, you know, he's that much further ahead. And then when he gets ready to create work plans, a work plan can be created in 2 minutes. And then if there's a mistake made, and we have one particular grower this is his 3rd year of no machine moves on his farm without a work plan. He has realized the value of it. He's realized that that's what keeps his account clean, which obviously at the end of the year, his analyzed data is clean. And if a mistake is made, it's on him, which is huge. And his exact words, if there's a mistake made on a variety, on a population, on a prescription, he said, I need to be the one to make it, not my operator.
Don't leave it up to that guy to have to go through the display and find what he thinks he's supposed to be doing. Just tell him what he's supposed to be doing. Tell him that with a work plan.
That's exactly right.
Most of you customers, you know, they spend the winter trying to make plans of what they're going to do for next year. They've talked to their their chemical provider, their seed provider, and they know what their plan is going into 2025. So they do need to take the time, just like Patrick said, go in there and get all the products out, your chemicals, your seeds, all your varieties that you're not going to use, that you used in 24, get them out of there if you're not going to use them again in 25. Only populate the good information, because if that's there, you're not going to pick the wrong thing. And then once you select that work plan for that particular field and send only this seed variety there, the operator can't make a mistake. It's up to the whoever's building the plan to come up with what's going to be in the field when the operator gets there.
Correct.
So how far out can you plan, I guess?
You can plan right.
Yeah.
No, you can plan right now for October.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. The plans stay in there until it has been deleted, or that when that field is done. Say there's a planting plan in there. He can send all of it. He can say he has 20 cornfields coming up, right? Every one of them has a plan. If he wants to, he's going to run 3 planters. He can send all of those plans to those 3 planters at one time. Or he may just want to choose, he may just want to do, hey, I'm going to the field in 2 days. I'm going to send field 1, 2, and 3. But that plan will stay there. If he needs to edit it, there's an edit feature.
Variety change.
Variety
or a
change,
different piece of equipment.
yes.
That tractor went down. I got to send it to another piece of
Yep.
equipment. Yeah.
And so that's the great thing about it, is it will just stay stored in the planned tab. And then when that tractor finishes planting that field, the system will automatically move it from planned to completed. So
that's my next question.
Yeah.
So plan progress.
Yeah.
What's a way of keeping up with that?
there's a progress bar.
progress bar. Yeah,
Yep.
That's neat.
So you could take the farmer, he puts in there, hey, this field, I want this seed variety. And then when you get done with it, this field, going with another seed variety. And then, he could just back away and let them do what they needed to do.
Yeah, so when you send a plan we'll just talk about planting. We're at planting time.
Yeah.
So, he sends fields 1, 2, and 3 to his planter tractors. If that tractor goes to field 4, that display is never going to alert him that there's a job for that field. Only when he goes into field 1, 2, and 3 when he drives into that boundary, again, back to boundaries, work plan works off of boundaries. So they have to be exact. When that tractor enters that boundary, it will alert the operator that he has a planned job for this field. He will accept that job. Everything the owner and or manager populated for that work plan, when he accepts it, it's there. There's no typing. There's no entering a client, farm, field, variety, population. You can tie a prescription. You can go flat rate planting. You can tie a prescription in that work plan. You can tie liquid application. We got some farmers planting corn now. They're not just planting, but they're putting out a 30-002. You can put that in the work plan. All that hits the display. Tractor drives into that correct boundary. It populates. The driver does nothing but
One
rolls.
of the biggest questions we get about our work plan is most of the time is, what happens if the seed variety that I have planned for it gets changed? We run out of that seed. Well, we tell them all the time, it's simple. You can change it on your phone in 30 seconds and send a new plan out there with a new variety on it. And it's just that simple. So, there is no reason not to use Work Planner besides that you don't have a good, clean operation. So
Correct.
that is the only thing that can keep you from using it. And that work plan, if you care about your data, Work Planners are what you need to be using.
And I'll say on that note, because if you do have that variety change, one of 2 things is going to happen, or one of 3. One, you're going to have poor documentation because you don't make the change. 2, you're going to climb up in every cab and change the variety manually. Or 3, you can change that work plan. So,
Patrick mentioned a progress bar. We just got through a spring break. If we'd been in the field and had been planting, your farmer could have been down at spring break with his children and watching that progress bar and watching how they were getting across the field and knowing what's going on. Could actually be booking seeds, sending it to another direction, making a new work plan for something else, all that while he's down on the beach with his wife.
Excuse me. Another point to work plan that we're seeing, and this is growing rapidly. And Kate, I don't know if Gaston, if this is something you all got down the line to ask about, but this is where partnerships are starting to come in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Partnerships with the seed, chemical fertilizer companies, partnerships with agronomists, because when you create that partnership, and the farmer can designate what access levels he wants that guy to have. But, you know, if that partner has work access levels, he can monitor, you take a Helena or Simplot or Nutrien, they can monitor that customer. They can, and that lets them know how much seed, is he running short? Fertilizer, is he running short? And then he's the one, he's getting value out of it as well, because chances are he's wanting a strip trial as well. A lot of these people have their own proprietary products. They want to see strip trial data. So that's it. That's that partnership that's starting to grow really quick, and farmers and the ag retail side is seeing a huge benefit right there.
I think you're exactly right on that. And what I think about with this work planner from my previous experience is, if you don't have something planned out on the front end, it seems to be just a lot of jumping around, a lot of changing. And what you can run into, especially nowadays with the seed variety specifically, that can or cannot go on this type of dirt. So you get everything right on the front end. Yes, things change, and you need to make some corrections, but everybody's now on the same page, and everything is just flowing more efficiently.
Yeah.
I would say,
It's,
from top to bottom.
Yes.
The owner of the farm, the driver of the tractor, the retailer, everything's just flowing. And then what I have seen in some smaller, not exactly op center, but just maybe for a guy who we would sit down and we would look at his total acres on this farm, and we would kind of add up acres and see which variety needed to go where. Well, I took the next step and made a colored map. And that year he got done planting, was like, whoa. He stayed true to it because he trusted what he had done on the front end, that those varieties were going in the right spot. And followed through, and he got done. He said, man, this just sped up so much, and I knew what I was doing was right. And that goes hand in hand with what a work planner is.
Exactly, yep.
You take the work planner, like I said, we've been talking about seeding because it's planting time, but when you get ready to go to harvest, you can run a variety locator on your combines now, and you're 100% confident because you documented planting right, that you're harvesting the correct variety. And so if you're analyzing that at the end of the year, you know that this variety did outperform the other one, and you're confident that it was where it was supposed to be.
Yeah. So for those if you're not familiar with variety locator, it is kind of like a prescription for your combine, but the prescription layer is your planting data. And so whatever variety was planted will be what that combine documents. So you talk about guys that are cutting soybeans on an angle. I don't know a combine operator out there. They got a variety split in the middle of that field who's going to manually adjust that variety every time they come across that line. So variety locator will do that for you.
If somebody plants a trial and does a couple of different rows with one variety and changes, if he's changing it in the display when he comes in and harvests it, it's going to know where that trial was. He's not going to have to do anything special for the combine. He just has to make sure that they have the right, the width for the platform and the planter matching up for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, do the work at planting, get your information correct, and then once again though, what is variety locator bound by? The boundary. If you're cutting across 3 or 4 fields and that boundary doesn't reflect that, you will have variety locator data for one of them, but field 2 and 3 you will be on your own. So it's all comes back to to the foundation.
So Patrick mentioned that trusted partnership, which I think our minds go a lot to consultants and to ag retailers. What are y'all seeing? And I guess Kay can speak on this too because you've been involved with it. But what benefits are those guys seeing being connected and for them and along with their farmer by having that connection on Ops Center?
My mind immediately goes to prescription writing. These are the guys that are writing the prescriptions. And so, number one, as a partner, that used to be and still is in a lot of places, that could be a 3-step process of going from a chemical seed salesman to writing a prescription to getting it. It's in his platform, but he's got to get it in, maybe through a third party to get it in the Deere system.
Yeah, a lot of steps. Starts at the soil lab. Starts in the field pulling the soil sample.
It does.
The soil lab, then all.
So now you go back to a huge inefficiency for him, where if he's a partner and he can create that prescription, he can create it in his own system, and get it into Ops Center. Ops Center will convert that file and get it to that machine and attach it in that work plan, and he can follow it, and then he can see how that machine is putting out to check himself on the correctness of his prescription.
We're starting to see, you're talking about partnerships, where you're starting to see people really becoming a true advisor to where they're working with their customers and we were discussing earlier making the plan during the wintertime and putting that in. Well, now we're starting to have some of your advisors that are going there and doing it for them. They're making their self more valuable to their customer by going into that customer's operations center, putting in the variety and stuff that they're going to sell for the upcoming year, building the tank mixes for that customer, and just helping, like I said, being more of a trusted advisor than just a salesman.
Yeah. And it goes back to it's utilizing what the equipment is capable of doing. This, you buy that tractor, that combine, utilize it to the fullest.
You get the most out of
Get the
it.
most.
Absolutely.
Get the most out of that thing. Now, backing up a little bit with Work Planner, we talked about displays earlier, 2630s, even V1 processors. We've got guys wanting to use Work Planner, but they're starting to realize, I got to make some upgrades.
Yep.
And that has to happen. They may not be able to upgrade everything. Maybe this year they can upgrade their processors, V1 processors, on just their planter tractors. Just whatever it takes. But planting, like Kate said, planting is the base. I mean you want that as accurate as you can possibly get it, because that's going to follow it. That's going to follow that through your sprayers. That's going to follow it especially over into the combines. And then when you can analyze and know that data is accurate because your planting was accurate, that's the tell of the tape. That tells the story.
Yeah. We're going to get more into some of the analytics and what Ops Center can do here later on in this episode. But I will, like you said, if you don't plant by that variety and you don't get to use that variety locator in that combine, you're not going to have that ability to go in after harvest and hit 2 buttons and it tell you what variety performed the best in your operation. And that's something everybody wants on the tail end, but it is difficult when it's planting season and things are, a million things are happening. It's difficult to prioritize. All right, let me make sure my documentation is correct. But I do still feel like the easiest way to do that is with Work Planner.
Yeah.
And I'll say, to follow up on what you mentioned about prescriptions, if you are using prescriptions and you have a Gen 4 or a Gen 5 and you are not using Work Planner, you are wasting time.
No doubt.
Because I can't tell you how much easier it is. It does the work for you.
Yes.
You tag that prescription to that work plan. When I import that, I'm ready to roll.
Yep.
I mean, it's not an extraction. It's not an assign. It's not a go find it, import. I mean, and so same thing for the retailers, the consultants of the world. If y'all are using Work Planner, or if y'all are putting prescriptions in machines and not using Work Planner, I think that there's a tool there that could be of great value to you. And y'all mentioned another thing that I meant to start off with this, and it's completely slipped my mind, but I'm glad y'all brought it up. Going back to setting up the Operations Center account, the varieties, the products, the tank mixes.
Oh, yeah.
The cleaner that is, and I think y'all have already mentioned this, but the easier that work plan is to send, because I'm not having to filter through 50 varieties.
Yeah.
I've got my 6 that I know I'm trying to get out this year.
Yeah, so, work plan is very simple. It starts with you pick the fields, you go to the next page and you pick the crop, and then it's variety. Well, that drop-down list right there is your created variety list that you did in setup. So if you haven't cleaned that, Johnny mentioned that earlier, if you haven't cleaned that, and there's 50 varieties you got to shuffle through to find the right one, that just takes longer to build that plan. Where if you're going to plant 4 corn varieties this year, when you're building a work plan and you hit that variety drop-down box, you should only see 4 varieties. It's right there. You move to the next step. It's just like I say, a work plan that is clean does not take longer than a couple of minutes to build.
So set up files, getting the right stuff in the machine, sending the work plan to the machine, and then talk a little bit about the new or semi-new technology, data sync.
Yeah.
And clarify, because I know a lot of customers to this day still get concerned about, you got infield data sharing, then you've got work data sync, and then you've got setup file sync. So kind of discuss those differences as well.
Yeah, so we've always moved files, and the setup files is what I'm talking about. And setup files involve your client farm fields, boundaries, guidance tracks. We're not talking work data here. So in the past, up till really last year, we have always had to create a setup file. There's a setup file creator under the setup tab, and you basically build it step by step. It's not hard. And then you can wire any machine that's wireless data capable, you can send that setup file. Work data sync is a little different feature, kind of doing the same thing, but it stays active. So in other words, what I mean by that is when you enable data sync amongst your fleet, whether you want that to just be, a couple of planter tractors, or just between your sprayers, or just between your harvest equipment, or you want your whole entire fleet on data sync, basically what you're doing is you're telling those machines that I've activated you, whatever change you make in the field, you set a new guidance track, you create a new field, client, a farm, whatever, that information is making a loop to all the connected machines and back to Op Center. And it's making sure all of that data is the same in everything. Now, the farmers are leery of that because...
I was about to say, you made a lot of listeners nervous right then by saying that. So
yeah, it is, because if you have an operator out there that's bad about typing in the field when he gets there, he's not utilizing the field, or the farmer's not utilizing work planner, so he's having to populate a field name. Well, it's not the same as the field name that's already in Op Center. Mm-hmm. And then he's going out there and he's setting a disc track or combine angle track. Remember, all that is connected, and so all of that's going to share. Some farmers are a little leery about that junking up their clean Op Center account. But in data sync, you can set all your incoming data in Op Center. You can set that to go to archive folder. That way, when it's a rainy day, you're at the end of harvest, whatever the case may be, you can now go to that archive folder and just pull back out what you want to make active. So it's a very neat feature. It does take I don't know if discipline's the right word, but
a little bit of pre-work.
Little pre-work there to eliminate junking your account back up.
And I'll say what you were just talking about, sending that archive feature. It's a it's you like what you mentioned. If you know that guy's got, if he picked up some new land and that operator did have to create a new guidance track, then yeah, you need that. So I go pull it back out. But if he
Right.
created a new row, squiggly line 1 line in all the various fields that he went and wrote up, I don't want that. So that's going to go to archive. But on the other side of that is creating something from your phone, like we talk about variety change. Let's say they're out of a certain variety, they send you another one. Oh no, I didn't. That wasn't in my setup file, or that's not in the displays. You go add that from your phone to Op Center on Op Center Mobile, and in a matter of seconds is available in those displays.
Yeah, it's
That's the glory of data sync.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, my first experience with it was a farmer that wanted to activate 3 combines with data sync. And because it would always be a lead combine to go in and set that angle, when he wanted his other 2 combines to be able to come in, and of course those three combines are just sharing that data with one another, and he loved it. He loved it. That was year before last. He utilized it this past fall, but he doesn't want to activate his tractors. Which is fine. That's why I say that's up to the farmer. We have some farmers that have it activated through the whole entire fleet. That's a management decision.
Most farmers know the equipment they want on there, so they'll say, I want all my planter tractors on it. I want my harvest equipment on it. But I'll have a couple of them that they're going to be just doing random jobs throughout the year. They're going to be mowing grass with this particular tractor, or doing some random tillage that they don't want everybody to have an AB line. And they'll say, just don't turn them on, but we'll turn all the rest of them on. And like I said, they know that going up front, so they can make that decision and set it up that way. And then they don't have to worry about spending 6 hours again trying to clean their operations center up because they just got a bunch of trash in.
Water fur tractors would be a one
Yeah.
you would not want on data sync.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like what we talked about last episode was the master copy. You have that Op Center that is your master copy. It's your, it's exactly as I want it. If I know that is the case and I'm not picking up new ground or, having some major changes, then there's no reason for me to have, at least for boundaries, guidance tracks, stuff like that, there's no reason for me to have that data flow into my Op Center. Exactly. I would want that to archive. But maybe products of my sprayer operator, if he's good at putting in the stuff correctly, maybe I want that to flow. Yeah. Or my varieties. If that guy's good about keying in the correct variety and spelling it correctly, maybe I want that to flow.
Yeah, no doubt.
You mentioned if you've got all your acres already in there, your boundaries, your guidance line, and everything is perfect in the operations center, and you're not planning on changing anything, you can also tell it that you don't want it to come back. Any changes made in the operations center will go to all the equipment, but nothing can come back to the operations center. So to keep it, like you said a while ago, your master set, so you're not worried about overwriting anything in the operations center.
So do we get into the analyze piece?
Well, yeah, I wanted to make one thing clear because I did have a note over here. One of the biggest things that customers like about data sync versus sending setup files to and from is shifts. I know we're in RTK world here running straight tracks for days. If I'm in a tractor, if I rode my land up and I send that guy, let's say I shifted a couple of times, I got 6 inches of shifts in that line, and I send that line up to the Op Center via exporting setup files, and I shoot that line to another tractor come next year when I'm trying to row up, that shift is in that line, and I have no way to see it in Op Center.
Yep.
And that's something we actually became aware of that the hard way years ago. But data sync, they did do us a favor with data sync. That guy can shift that line 2 feet over. That shift will not hit any other machine on that in that circle.
Stays with the
stays with that tractor. That is correct.
Yeah.
I have said it for years. You mentioned shifts. To me, shifts is a cuss word because if you're running RTK, you should take the time when you're bedding up or whatever you're doing to make that initial AB line to make sure everything is set up properly. If you have to shift, it's because something's not running right. And so, old famous saying, you live in the bed you make.
Yeah.
And so If your hipper's pulling 2 inches to one side, then that's going to make it that way all the way across the field. And like Cade said, you're going to have a shift in there.
Yep.
But it all starts at the very beginning.
One more thing to data sync is implement profiles do not move through data sync. That still has to move through a setup file creator.
Yeah, and that's something I think Deere is working on as we speak.
Yeah.
And then, so speaking of those implement profiles, there's some changes coming with that as well. Speak a little bit about what that looks like today and what that'll look like later on this year.
Yeah, so we're still learning on this, but you can go in from your computer and build your implements. And again, it could be what we call a dummy implement or a isobus implement that the tractor will pick up. But you can put your characteristics in for that implement. How wide is it working with, all that information, and build that in Op Center and transfer that via setup file, and those characteristics are going to flow to that tractor via that setup file. Whereas before, you could get the implement to the display, but you still had to go in and double check to be sure.
Put the rest of it in there.
Put the rest of it in there.
What's my trigger?
Yeah.
How's it hooked to the tractor?
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, what's coming now is the ability to, as you're building the implement in Op Center, you can populate all that data, and it will flow through the setup file into the display.
Yeah, it's all about removing stuff that you have to do from the seat of the tractor.
Exactly.
And right now, the way implements is, there's still a few characteristics that you have to key from the
Yep.
seat of the tractor,
Yep.
which kind of defeats the purpose.
It does. It
So I'm
does,
glad Deere
yeah.
recognized that and are making that change later this year.
So yeah, analyze piece I think is can get a little tricky for some people. It has for the guys I've dealt with over the years. What tools, Johnny, are in Op Center now that allows you to go back and look at everything you've done that year or in season, and kind of speak on how John Deere has set up Op Center? From my experience, it's not going in there and telling you what you need to go do the next year. It's giving you a better way of viewing it, and then you're using your trusted advisors to go in there and look at all the data and maybe some of those third-party connections that we have in Op Center that can help make those decisions for the future.
You have two different analyzer tools in there. So you have a field analyzer, which will give you the capability to go in, pull up a field, and you can analyze your planter information, say down pressure or something information from your planter, and analyze your yield from your combine. So you're able to look at the performance of your tractor. If you're changing from a standard planter to an ExactEmerge planter, you might want to look at the difference in fuel burn and so forth, because if you're going to run ExactEmerge, you're going to be going high speed. So you might be planting 10 miles an hour, 8 miles an hour, where you've been planting 4.5, but you can see all of a sudden I'm getting about half the fuel burn because I'm covering more ground in a specific time. So you're able to analyze so many more things than what we used to could. When you think of analyze, most people just think of harvest. But it's a lot of information from tillage. We've had somebody analyzing ripper tillage and seeing how that goes to harvest, down pressure to harvest, land leveling to harvest. There's so many things you can analyze inside the Operations Center. If you want to look at just varieties, I can pull up, my soybeans. Patrick mentioned a while ago, he put 4 varieties of soybeans in a work plan. Well, now I can go in and say which variety yielded the best, and so I can see that. So there's so many different ways you can go in and analyze different things, just depending on what you want to look at. Yeah. Just because I want to look at this, Patrick might want to see something different.
Well, and I think the harvest still ties it all in together, and we've had that for so long, but then it looked like a pretty map, and it would tell you maybe some low spots in the field, but I think it's so impressive now what all we're tracking all season long. You tie everything in the work planner. You're getting the good information in, and then that harvest just brings it all in, and then you can piece apart different things during the season that could have played a big part in the good and the bad and on that yield map.
If you're going to do something new, you got to make sure that it's going to make a difference.
Gotta measure it.
Analyzing is the only way you're going to measure it. Somebody running a new See and Spray sprayer, they're going to want to see at the end of the year. They've had the weed pressure maps. They were able to see what their savings was in chemical, but they also want to see at the end of the year, okay, did I benefit from running the See and Spray sprayer? Did it not only save me in some chemical savings, but hopefully, it could help me in my crop because your yield could show that your chemical did not damage your crop. So, and I actually have some chemical savings. You might actually be doing some yield, have some yield benefit at the end of the year because of some damage done to the crop throughout the year.
Yeah, and that's an interesting take on See and Spray that I look forward to diving into a little bit more this year. Sure. And I'm sure we'll have an episode eventually dedicated solely to See and Spray. But that's absolutely correct, and that's a cutting edge technology that you're able to analyze there. But I mean, even back to power shift versus IVT, you got a guy who's never, he stuck with those power shift tractors. He likes the way all of his operators know how to run them. But if he's running two, let's say it's planters, for instance, or a disc, if he's running two of them in the same field, he happens to be demoing an IVT or something, that's something that we can go back and look at and say, look at this fuel burn. Look how much more efficient this transmission was.
We got some information from John Deere in our AOR, about planting, hitting the right window, and how much difference that made in yield if you were in that 10-day window that for corn planting, soybean planting. The information we got, the difference in the yield and at today's market price more than paid for an ExactEmerge planter in 1 year. And everybody's saying your planter's too expensive. Well, we're just showing you by getting it planted in the correct day will pay for itself, but the only way to know that is to be able to analyze that, to be able to take it and be able to look at your data, bring it in, and like you said, take it all the way to harvest, because if you're not looking at the full picture, you're not getting all the information.
Well, I know we're getting towards the end here, but what's the best way for our customers, anybody interested in Op Center, wants to learn more, using it already some, but wants to go take the next step? What ways are y'all training customers on all the functions and how to get the most out of what Op Center has to offer?
Well, to me, the most successful way usually starts with the salesman. Mm-hmm. At having that conversation, maybe not that conversation, but it leads to that conversation. A lot of times it starts with a guy that he just makes a bold statement that, hey, I want to get all of my machines connected this year. And then, the salesman will reach out to us and we'll set up a one-on-one meeting. That has been going on this whole entire winter. So we do have some accounts that will call us directly. More of those accounts, and that's fine. A direct call from a grower to us is perfectly fine. But most of those calls come from guys that have been in Op Center for several years. These new accounts, the salesmen are in those areas are engaged. They have that relationship, and an initial conversation around Op Center, whatever, for maybe they were using another platform before, but they've seen some benefits. They've heard that a neighboring farmer showed them some stuff. They want to transition to Op Center, and then the salesman will set up that meeting.
Yeah.
So our IntelliFarm team is the backbone of definitely of all the technology. So we just want to give the salesman. We don't expect them to know how to operate everything, but we want to give them enough information to where they can go talk about it and then bring us on board, and we can help get the customer utilizing it.
Yeah, I think that's what's so impressive about IntelliFarm.
And then we didn't even haven't even touched on what that does for the shop. the
Oh, yeah.
technicians.
Which that's another. We've talked about connected support a little bit in one of our other episodes. We had Hayden and Sean in here discussing expert alerts and what service advisor remote and how that the benefits that come with how we're able to get in front of some problems, but even the ones that we're not able to get in front of, we're that much more efficient taking the right parts and the right tools to that machine. That is a whole nother benefit to putting that MTG in that machine and getting online.
It's a pure team effort, Gaston. It takes the techs, the service managers, the GMs, the salesmen, and our group. We can't over communicate enough to make that farmer happy with what he's got. Ultimately,
The word was and Sean brought it up, I believe, in that episode, but it was partnership.
It's
and that's exactly what it is. I think it's been mentioned here as well as, and I think Sean said it as well as we do better when they do better.
That's it.
Yes.
We want to maximize efficiency. We want to maximize profitability. We want you to win.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
there's a lot of facets that we can help there.
That's what I've been thinking this whole time is that we spoke on data so much, and that can worry people and get nervous a little bit about it. But obviously, privacy things we can go into later that you agree or not agree to, and all those kind of things. But it all comes down to these tools, and Ops Center being a main one, is that these are to better help you manage and analyze what's happening on your farm. I mean, these are tools for you. I mean, we're not over here breaking down what this guy's doing. This is for you to go in and just manage your operation
And utilize that machine to its fullest.
Yep, get the most out of it.
Do y'all know any future things that could possibly come out with Op Center that you've heard of?
We could tell you, but
No.
Well, I mean, autonomy. I mean, it's gonna house. It's gonna be the basis of everything.
yeah, well, it's just like we've been trying to meet with customers that have model year 25 combines coming in because up until, if I'm not mistaken, up until this machine, Op Center has been completely optional. Anything you wanted on that machine, you could use with or without Op Center. These combines are coming with a feature, a look-ahead feature that requires a work plan. If you want to utilize that technology, you've got to use a work planner.
Yep.
I mean, that's the only way to get that
Exactly.
predictive yield map from the satellites into that machine.
That's one thing. It's going with salesmen or without the salesman in the room. I try to make that plug right there. If you don't utilize Work Planner, but for one operation, for just maybe your spraying, at least start getting used to it.
Yeah.
Because that everything in the future, I mean, it's here now with these new combines. So you can imagine 5 years from now, work planner is going to be, how this flows.
And that autonomous tractor. We saw it down in Orlando. And how did he fire that tractor up?
His phone.
With his phone.
Yep.
In Op Center.
Man,
Go figure.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, we unpacked a lot here, and I know there's a lot of good information. We'll probably have a part 3 somewhere down the
think so.
road
We got to.
with Operations
Maybe
Center
just
for
a
sure.
future tech episode.
Yeah. But it's
Never ending.
In summary, guys, from part 1 till now, it's check in with your IntelliFarm, find out who your IntelliFarm representative is. If you haven't met them, your weighted incorporated salesman will of course have that information. We got to get that account built. Let's get that equipment connected, get the boundaries in there, and then the benefits start speaking for themselves. We get the guidance tracks correct, get your products, varieties, chemicals, tank mixes built right. Start sending those work plans, maybe turn on data sync and see what works and what does not work. So we've enjoyed it. Patrick, Johnny,
Enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you.
thank you all for taking the time, and we'll see y'all next time on the tailgate.